All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders, the great millstone who teach and rule well. And salutations to the Akim out there laboring of the hopeful elect that's doing this work in truth and sincerity. And you can see here in this article, um, pretty much you're seeing what's going on behind the closed doors. And there's a little rift between the banks and the Federal Reserve. And I have an article here, and the title reads J.P. Morgan Chase, Citibank, and Goldman Sachs drafting landmark lawsuit against Federal Reserve report. Okay, now let's get into the reason why this is happening. Okay, it says a group of America's biggest banking titans are considering whether they should pull a shocking move using the Federal Reserve. JP Morgan, Chase, Citibank, and Goldman Sachs are the list of major banks that, using their trade group, have hired one of the best conservative trial lawyers in the country to draft the lawsuit. Right? Eugene Scalia, son of the former Supreme Court Justice Anton Scalia, is spearheading the legal effort, which would aim in eliminating purpose rules that would force banks to increase the amount of cash they have on hand. Now, this is what's happening now, okay? To put it in layman terms, the Federal Reserve is urging the banks to have more cash on hands. And this is for the fact that they know that something, you know, down the road is coming, okay? To where, they want to try to avoid what you want to call, what you want, a bank runoff. And a bank runoff is pretty much where people would run down to the bank and withdraw their money at a higher than usual alarming rate, so to speak. So now the Federal Reserve is pretty much telling the banks to have more cash on hand. And the only way that these people can have more cash on hand is if they have to be forced to borrow the money from the Federal Reserve. Okay? The Federal Reserve is what funds these banks. So now there's a lawsuit going on between it now. Okay? Now, you've seen what's going on. It says it would be the first time in recent memory that the industry has sued the Fed, a departure from the standard halls of power persuasion effort that try to avoid antagonizing its chief regulator. Right? The Feds want banks to hold an additional 20% in cash on their balance sheets. The move is designed to ensure they have enough capital to withstand concerns of liquidity and avert the types of bank runs that ripped through the banking sector 1 year ago. You see, and that's pretty much what's going on. They're tightening up to where they don't want the same thing to happen to where these smaller banks had went under. You see, like a lot of those regional banks pretty much went under, pretty much because the bigger banks were buying out the smaller regional banks. So you're seeing now almost like a monopoly is going on now with these banks, okay? And it's pretty much going to lead, to ultimately, to that MOTB at the end of the day. You see, and all of these banks are pretty much getting on board with that digital currency, okay, which is about to take over, okay. You see, but it says, but the banks say the rules are far too strict, citing internal analysis that shows that they would actually be forced to keep 30% in cash on hand. Scalia says the Feds has plenty of explaining to do, you know, and pretty much, we're seeing these little things going behind closed doors. But I want to pull up this article from Zero Hedge to really, bring home the point of this lawsuit. And it says, the Fed prepares for a bank crisis while telling Americans the economy is strong. So really, in hindsight, the Americans really think that the economy is getting stronger now. Okay, despite the war that's brewing abroad. Okay, and that's going to affect trade somewhere down the line. It's going to affect oil prices somewhere down the line as this war intensifies. It's just common sense, you see? And not alone, let alone, we have the inflation, and pretty much it's costing more money pretty much for people to put food on the table, let alone the raised up interest rate where people are paying more money to pretty much finance a car or a home that they currently live in. You see? But it says, um, last Thursday, Bloomberg reported that federal regulators are preparing a proposal to force U.S. banks to utilize the Federal Reserve's discount window in preparation for a future bank crisis. Okay, so now when you want to interpret, utilize the Federal Reserve's discount window, meaning that the feds will allow the banks to borrow money from them for a discounted price, so to speak. So it's telling them now to take advantage of this, okay? Which is going to put them pretty much more in debt, so to speak, okay? The banks are going to be more in debt to the Federal Reserve, okay? So it says, the aim, noted Ketanji Johnson, is to remove the stigma around tapping into its financial lifeline, part of a continuing fallout from the failures of several significant regional banks last year. So in order for them to keep this whole thing that happened last year, where a lot of these banks, these regional banks were closing, little community banks or little, small town banks, they pretty much got, eaten up, so to speak, by the bigger banks. Okay? It says, this new policy is reminiscent of the Fed's actions during the 2007 financial crisis. Now, you got to remember that time. This is the time when, pretty much when the economy crashed back in 2007, 2008. And this is when Obama pretty much was doing his first 100 years in office, and he was faced with this financial crisis. You see? All right? This is when a time when the gas prices pretty much rose up to astronomical numbers. Okay, people were trying to conserve what gas that they used, and pretty much people lost their homes because of predatory lending from these houses, and there was a bubble. And now, okay, we're seeing now that there's also another bubble coming. Okay, because now you're having massive layoffs from a lot of these big corporations and companies. Okay, and it's going to be a trickle down effect. So now the Feds is pretty much letting the banks know, listen, you better jump in on this because another bubble crash is going to come. You see? And this is going to be the end all be all in this next one. Okay? It says the new policy is reminiscent of the Fed's actions during the Fed's actions, Slovakia, during the 2007 financial crisis, where financial authorities encouraged large banks to tap into the discount window, taking loans directly from the Federal Reserve to make it easier for distressed banks to do the same. The hesitancy from financial institutions to tap into the source of liquidity is justified. If the public believes the bank needs support from the Fed, it is rational for debtors to flee the bank, depositors to flee the bank. The Fed's explicit aim is to provide coverage from at-risk banks trying to hold off bank runs that are inherent risks of our modern fractional reserve banking system. Okay, so now there's something that they know behind the closed doors that's going on, okay? And they pretty much are telling the banks to brace themselves for what you want to call a bank run, okay? Let's get that definition real quick, okay? Of what a bank run is, right? Stock here. Let's get that. Bank run. Bank runs occur when a large group of depositors withdraw their money from banks at the same time. Customers and bank runs typically withdraw money based on fears that the institution will become insolvent. With more people withdrawing money, banks will use up their cash reserves and end up in default. You see? So now they know that something is coming down the pipeline. And we always sit there, we always talk about these things. Okay? You see, we talk about, pretty much the pending of the new way of doing things, the whole banking system. We all talk about these things, and it's all in the scriptures, man. Okay? It talks about in James, the 5th chapter, about these rich men, about their riches being corrupted and cankered. You see? Okay? But this is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 1. I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower and will watch to see what he will say unto me and what I shall answer when I am reproved. And the Lord answered to me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. You see? And pretty much, man, we here to, pretty much break things down and pretty much read the sign of the times with these articles that pretty much come up. Chiefly these are alternative articles, because pretty much they tell you the real deal, what's going on. And we're pretty much going to filter these things through the scriptures, man. Okay? Now we already know pretty much the Trojan horse that this man has in his back pocket, which is the MOTB, and he has to find some type of way to get to this new system that he's trying to roll out. Okay, and part of that is pretty much the destruction of the old economy. Okay, to bring in something new, you have to have destruction of the old one. You see, and I want to read this chiefly because Jake still don't see it. And pretty much it's a Jake in the world that I knew since childhood, and I used to just say little things to him, speaking about finance. And what he had said to me recently was that you always been talking about, quote, you always been talking about this whole thing for the longest time, and basically saying that he's an unbeliever, he doesn't see it. Now you don't particularly have to know, accept the truth, but to not have common sense, is pretty much detrimental, man, to your own well-being, man, because it just tells me that the Lord is not with you, and you're gonna get caught up in this whole thing. You're gonna get caught up off guard, okay, pretty much with your pants down. You see, and it says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, and at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. That's pretty much what I told him, okay? You see, we know that though it tarry is coming. Well, we've been speaking about this for a very long time, that we firmly believe that these things are going to happen, man. Okay? You see? All right, this is all prophesied in the scriptures, man. Okay? Somehow, some way, this man has to bring in that beast system, man. Okay? And this is one of the ways where he's preparing the banks to where, they have to, pretty much last to where he's able to bring his perfect rollout. Okay? So now to not have them totally collapse, but knowing that there is a crisis that's coming down the pipeline. That's the point. You see? Okay? But it says, the Lord said, man, this vision was yet for an appointed time, that we always spoke about these things. Okay? You see, and it's pretty much well due. The last crash in the economy crisis was in 2007. And fast forwarded now, we're talking about, well over a decade now. Okay? Well over a decade now since the last crisis. And it's bound to happen. It's bound to happen. People are pretty much are in big debt and are carelessly spending money that they don't have and putting themselves into this debt. You see? It says, verse 4, behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. We've seen this man that's pretty much in rulership. His soul is not upright, man. Okay? All right? When you really talk about the plans of what this man intends to do, you can clearly see He's a madman, you know? Okay? There's no soundness in his speech, so to speak, man. He has no understanding. There's no understanding in this man. The scriptures speak about Edom, you know? And it says, yea, also, because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. This man never keeps at home because he wants to try to tell everybody else what to do. He's trying to impose his democracy. Okay? You see? And his import, okay? What he has to import to these other countries or export to these other countries, okay, is pretty much immorality. Okay? That's the main thing that he has to bring to the table. And that's a umbrella of things. We know where we're going with that. Okay? And people that don't agree with what this man wants to impose on these countries, he wants to instill his sanctioning power unto them. You see? And this is why these countries are pretty much lining up and creating their own currency. You see? Okay? And this is where this is going to also put that other, foot in the grave with this financial system that we have here in Babylon. Okay? You see? This whole thing is pretty much going to bring this whole system down to its knees. Okay? But it says, right? He neither keep it at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and as death he cannot be satisfied, but gather unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And we already see clearly who's doing that. Okay? The destruction of these other countries financially, okay, and pretty much taking the resources from the people and putting it into the hands of a small number of people. This is why you have a lot of these people that are fleeing their own countries coming here, thinking to pretty much benefit from what they want to believe is the yellow brick road, so to speak, that gold paved streets. Okay, all right, which they pretty much are being deceived from that. Okay, and this is the only reason why you're seeing a lot of these people that are coming up to this country is because their economy is being destroyed by design. Okay. The people are not benefiting from the resources that these countries have. You see? Okay? So people are trying to go and seek a better life, but they're only bringing themselves into the hand of the murderer. You see? Okay? But it says, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, saying, woe to him that accreaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with Dick Clay, and it goes into the debt, man, abatya, okay, all right, and pretty much, you're looking at the debt clock, and we're seeing now that it's currently at 34 trillion, and then we can just go back in time, you can go back to, let's go back to maybe 2016, 2015, okay. We can go back to that time when the debt clock was pretty much at 17 trillion. Now it's at 34, pretty much doubled, okay, in a short period of time. I pretty much think they was at that amount when Obama was in office, at 17 trillion. Now fast forwarded, a couple administrations later, it's at 34 trillion. Okay, so these banks pretty much are going to find themselves in a bind. And this is why you're seeing the little internal fighting and trying to bring a lawsuit against the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is pretty much letting them know, they have the audacity to tell them, we have a window of discount for you to come in and get funds from us, at a pretty much at a low interest rate, and to pretty much stockpile money within your institutions, just for a crisis to happen. So we're seeing that this man is pretty much having all his ducks in a row right now. You see? And it says, shall not they not rise up against that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, that thou be booties unto them? And who's the booties unto them? Okay? It goes in the next verse. Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood and for the violence of the land of the city, and of all that dwell therein. You see? Okay? And pretty much, man, this is systematically going to be a bloodbath here, man. Okay? Aside from the economy going down the tubes, social unrest is coming. Okay? You got a lot of people that's here now that cannot pretty much even feed themselves. Okay? People are going to be in an uproar with these things. People are pretty much are going to be at each other's throat for whatever little they have. Okay, this is why this is going to be a pretty much a battle royale, so to speak. Okay, you're going to see people at each other's throat for a lack of bread, man. Okay, this is what's coming. Okay, and this place is going to be spoiled because the people are pretty much the nations have drunk of the wine, and they're mad. Okay, so they're pretty much aligning themselves to take vengeance, and by doing so, they align themselves financially with what you want to call the BRICS, and this is a conglomerate of countries that it pretty much are shying away from the petrodollar, because the petrodollar is pretty much what rules the world right now. Okay, but they come with another currency, okay, which is backed by real resources like gold. You see, and the countries align themselves up financially and align themselves up militarily. Okay, because the countries that are pretty much, chiefly Russia and China, and Russia being a guardian to them, and really you have to have a type of military interest within these countries that you're doing financial business with, so that it doesn't stop the flow of what your so-called funds, so to speak. So it only makes sense for these countries to pretty much line themselves up together financially, and also build themselves up militarily. Okay, and these are the people, the countries that are going to pretty much to the Lord is going to set themselves in array, okay, against Babylon, man. Okay, so the Lord is doing these things, and it's going to come to its perfect perfection, man. Okay, but just a quick article, on seeing what's going on behind closed doors with these banks, and pretty much how the banks now are trying to bring a lawsuit against the feds, because they're not being asked to do it; they're being told to do it. Okay, which is the banks are going to be take a toll on them, and for them to be more in debt. Okay, and got a bunch of stupid people here, on the comment board. It says, and these people don't really know anything. No, people just want to just run their mouth, and this is a country that's pretty much on a real low level of understanding of anything that's going on around them, because this place is nothing but a big Disneyland to these people, man. And people pretty much despise this place, chiefly not even because this is a first class society, but pretty much the folly that it has to go along with it, and what is actually being taken for granted, and pretty much through media, the block of the media, of how misinformed and pretty much sottish these people are, man. You see? Okay, so these people pretty much are, and hey, these people pretty much are gonna, and chiefly our people, man, because your ignorance is gonna end up having you be put to death by the Lord, man. Plain and simple. All right. So with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakwadash. Shalom.